Look, keeping your home tidy can feel like this constant battle. It is relentless, it never gives in, and there's always going to be more mess to clean up. And sometimes it's just like, how do I deal with this? I certainly don't have all the answers, and there's no one size fits all. And it is just kind of an ongoing thing where gradually you learn skills and you find systems that work for you. So I don't think there's one thing I can tell you that's totally going to transform you completely. But I have to say, I am someone who used to live in a lot of chaos a lot of the time. And there are 4 big organizing mistakes that I kept doing that kept tripping me up. And so I'm just trying to shout these 4 mistakes to all the mountains to tell everybody, please just be aware that this might be a little bit of a trap you're falling into. You don't have to agree with me. Maybe you don't take all these ideas with you, but just hear me out, because I actually think that overcoming some of these mistakes, or at least becoming aware of them, has made it a lot easier to keep my home just a little bit tidier. Like, maybe it's not perfect, but it's easier to get it back to a place where I can have guests over, or where it's not stressing me out, where I can actually use my home in a way that helps me and supports my life rather than making it harder. If any of these stick with you and help you, that on its own, that idea will be so satisfying to me, because knowing these things has really helped me. The first mistake I've often made in home organization is focusing on appearance over function. So basically wanting to make a space look pretty rather than focusing on what the space is doing for me. A perfect example in my life was the dresser that I picked out for my bedroom. It's beautiful. If you've watched my channel, you've probably seen it a number of times. It's this brown wooden dresser in my bedroom. I still have it. I still use it. But honestly, the drawers are not that easy to open and close. And I purchased it online, I think during the pandemic, so I didn't even go to the store to try it out. And also, it was kind of a popular dresser at the time, and I really liked the mid-century modern feel of it. And it matched the bed that we already had. It was like the same line, so it felt like the right decision, the responsible decision, maybe sort of a lifetime investment. But once I got the dresser and noticed how hard it was to open and close the drawers, I was objectively worse at putting my clothes away. But that was a lesson I needed to learn, and so every time I've gotten some kind of storage receptacle since then, I've really thought about how easy is this to open and close or get in and out of, because that will hugely determine whether or not I put things away. Any amount of friction or difficulty in putting something away can be that just little bit of pushback that keeps me from getting a task done. So anytime you're reconfiguring a space or purchasing a piece of furniture or making a big change to your home, focus on function first. Will I use this? How will I use this? When will I use this? Where will I use this? Is this going to make my life easier? Focus on that, and then maybe pick a prettier option for sure. Like, that can be a factor you consider as well, but prioritize the function, because ultimately, that's going to make the bigger impact on your quality of life and whether you put things away, and therefore the overall good feeling you have in your home than if something is pretty. Because believe me, eventually all pretty things just kind of fade into the background and you don't even notice what they look like. At least you don't notice that much. But you will notice if you can never put anything away. A second mistake I've sometimes made is worrying about deep clutter rather than the things you interact with every single day. So basically, I prioritize doing these like deep declutters of like storage areas or things that I don't touch, but then I wouldn't actually have a system or a plan for the things that I interact with day to day. Now, don't get me wrong, I've talked about the quote clutter nest before. That is a real thing, and I think it is so important to eventually attack that clutter nest, figure out where the clutter is breeding, and do a deep dive. But I also think it's really worthwhile to prioritize the stuff you interact with all the time and putting systems in place that allow you to put things away more easily. So for example, I, for the longest time, have not had a good system for where to put my purse when I come home each day. It is often in all different kinds of places around my house. Now, this may never be 100% solved because sometimes I want to grab something out of my purse and I'll bring it with me. But if I do have a landing spot for my purse that's easy to access, is maybe close to the door or close to where I use it, I'm way more likely to be able to find that purse when I need it and simply to not have it just all over the place all the time. Same with things like keys or the jacket that I'm using during that season of the year, or even dishes in the kitchen. I don't want to have so many mugs that they're like sitting on top of each other and I'm struggling to get them out. If I'm going to drink coffee every day, I want it to be super easy. I open the cupboard, don't have to think much, grab the mug, close the cupboard. I don't want to have to deal with like things falling on me. So basically, yes, do the deeper declutters eventually, but if you want to see a big change immediately, I almost think just go to the places where you spend all your time and figure out simple systems that allow you to put things away as you move through your space. Because once you start to do that, you'll also notice your ability to put things away, and you'll be able to feel like your working space, kind of like your working memory, like where you're doing things in the moment, is more serene and cleared out, and that gives you this sense of like, I can handle my home. And that way, when you go to declutter that big clutter nest, you have a sense of self-efficacy. You have some confidence. You feel like you can do it. I feel like we forget to think about those everyday things. Find a system, make it work for you. A third mistake I've made is following rules just because society has those rules. So for example, I used to store things where I was, quote, supposed to store them rather than necessarily where I used them. Whereas now I focus on where do I use something? How do I use it? And that will determine how and where I store something. Let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, the bed I'm sitting on is actually sort of the guest bed in our home. But I also do this with our own bed. I used to always have a duvet cover because, you know, if you have a duvet, you're supposed to have a duvet cover. That's just how it's done. And I do get maybe there's a reason for that, in that if it gets stained or something gross on it, you can just replace the duvet cover. But let's be real, don't forget, you can wash comforters. In fact, you should wash your comforters. I don't know, over time I've realized when I have a duvet cover on top of the duvet, so often it is too hot. I don't end up enjoying using it. And also, the duvet cover is difficult to deal with. It gets bunched up. The comforter doesn't stay consistently in the duvet cover. It gets bunched up in corners. Or, you know, when I have to put the duvet cover back on, that is one of the most annoying tasks ever. I like it when the duvet doesn't have a cover. It's lighter. It's easier to toss around. And I like washing the duvet itself more often because then it feels fully fresh and clean. So yes, there might be limitations to this. If there are some major stains, I will have to contend with that in the future. But realistically, if I just forget the duvet cover and just have the duvet on my bed, I don't know, it just makes it easier for me. I enjoy my bed more. It feels lighter, fluffier, and I don't have to deal with a gosh darn duvet cover. A second example, I have spent so much time folding tiny clothes for my 1-year-old daughter in the last year. I've spent so much time, or I've spent so much time feeling guilty that they weren't correctly folded or they needed to be folded, until recently I was like, wait a second, they're so tiny anyway, they don't really stay folded very well. And what ends up happening is I end up looking for something beneath another item because they're all so tiny that then they just all come undone and they're unfolded anyway. Why not just lean into the fact that at least for this period of time, when my daughter is outgrowing clothes so quickly and they're all so tiny and hard to fold, what if I just throw them in a basket and that's how I store her clean clothes? Why do I need to fold them? And so that's what I've started to do. Underneath my changing table on our first floor, I just throw a basket there. I throw in the clean clothes, I use them, I wash them, I throw them back in. I don't fold them. I know, again, so controversial, but it has just removed all of that guilt. I'm like, I don't have to feel bad about being behind on folding things, and I'm more likely to actually put the clothes away faster. Like the time it takes for those clothes to go from the dryer to where I need them is expedited because now I don't have to have this extra step of folding. I just throw them in the hamper and they're ready to go. Now again, some people will disagree with me, and yes, maybe there will be moments where her clothes are a little bit wrinkly, but you know what? Who cares? She's 1 year old and nobody has commented ever that she looks bad. So my point is, make your own rules. You are allowed to make your home work for you in a way that's more reasonable and realistic for you. and you will actually be happier in the long run. And again, it might actually make your space more streamlined and clean because, yeah, if you can cut out steps here or there, you can make things more accessible and easy for you, you're more likely to put things away, and therefore your overall space will be less stressful to you. A fourth big mistake I've made is shuffling things around or making them look nice in the moment, thinking that that's organizing. You're gonna play a losing game in organizing if you have too much stuff. I know I've said it so many times, but decluttering, I think, is the key to having a more streamlined and seemingly organized home. You can't really organize until you've decluttered, because if you just have too much stuff, it's never gonna work. At least for me, because I had like way too much. I still probably have more than I need, and I'm working on that. But if I don't do that decluttering step, I simply can't get to that easier, simpler space. So next time you're organizing and you're noticing you're bringing something from one part of the house to another, or you're just switching which drawer it's in, ask yourself, is this really gonna solve the problem? What is fueling the problem in this situation? Is it the amount of stuff I have? Could I reduce the amount? And would that make it easier to put things away or to find them? Because that's another thing. Even just finding things is sometimes a huge barrier, where if you can't find something, you end up buying it again because you couldn't find the one you already had, and then you're stuck with two. So just consider, how can I downsize the amount to make my life easier and more organized in the long run? So those are the 4 mistakes I've often made in organizing my home, and I hope that knowing these and being aware of them will help you out too. Those 4 mistakes are, just in case you forgot, let me read them out to you. First, focusing on appearance over function. Second, worrying about the deep clutter more than the everyday items. Third, following rules just because society has them. And then fourth, shuffling things around, thinking that's organizing. Instead, declutter. I think an overarching message here is, don't pretend that your home isn't what it is. Your home is not built to be in a magazine. Your home is your home. It's the place where you live. It's the place where you spend time and share memories. And it doesn't need to be perfect. But what it does need to do is to serve you, to give you a safe, comfortable place to be. And you are allowed to make your home work for you the way you want, and you don't have to worry about what other people think. Now, yeah, it's nice to feel like your home looks nice when you have people over. Sure, that's relevant, and also we feel better when our home is prettier. But my overall point is, don't feel like you need to follow specific rules. Follow your own rules. Figure out what systems work for you and make your home work for you. Hopefully some of these ideas were helpful, especially for people who are like me, who historically have lived in a lot of chaos. I know some of you really intense organizers out there are like, duh, like I knew all this, or this doesn't apply to me. I get it. Go you. I'm rooting for you too. Like, I admire those people who are like naturally super organized and natural declutterers, but I'm not that way. So maybe I'm more directing this at the people who are like me, because honestly, once I've realized these mistakes and I've made some shifts, I think it's made life just a little bit easier. And if you're new here, hi, welcome. So glad you found me. On this channel, I talk about simple living, minimalism, and building an empowering mindset. If that interests you, please hit the subscribe button, and you can also hit the bell alert button to be notified when new videos come out. Doing those things is a great way to support the channel. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button, because that's also a really good way to support the channel. Thanks so much for taking a moment to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.